Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 5 questions in about 10 or 15 minutes. And I am very excited to welcome our guest today. This is Josh Brown. He is out of Southeast Virginia, and he is the founder of Epic Coaches and Leaders. And thank you so much, Josh, for joining me on the podcast today. Tell the audience a little bit more about Epic Coaches and Leaders.
Well, hey, thanks for having me today. Great to share some nuggets of knowledge and, spread what we're doing here. I appreciate it.
You betcha.
And Epic Coaches and Leaders is the evolution of my original company, which was actually the Epic Course Agency, where really focused on building the absolute best courses for our entrepreneurs and agencies. But over the past couple of months, we really have evolved into not only supporting entrepreneurs in building the deliverables, things like the courses, but the entire ecosystem of their programs, things like the support systems and member experiences and all of those. And we wanted to build an entire movement around it of not only creating great revenue, but as the first word in our title says, epic, and it's epic results. And that's through not only the marketing techniques we use, but also through the educational science behind how it drives those transformative experiences. And since we started, we really got our foot in with so many great groups. We're members of a couple of elite masterminds, including Russell Brunson's Inner Circle and things like that. And we love the fact that this movement is taking over. People are acknowledging not only the great revenue piece, but really putting focus now on the results. So that's where we come in and where our mission is rooted.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you're focusing on that entrepreneurial stage, you might
Oh,
say.
yeah.
People are getting started. Obviously, I'm a big fan
Mhm.
of that because that's where my consulting comes in, is with the small and micro businesses, even the
Mhm.
solopreneurs. But I love that you've got some what you called an ecosystem to help those
Mhm.
folks get started and really
Oh,
get.
yeah,
That's awesome. Nice work.
that
All right,
is. Thank
let's
you.
let's dive into the questions then. Now, Josh, the first question, I'm sure this has never happened to you, but nonetheless, I'll ask anyway. Share it with the audience a time when maybe you or someone in a workplace environment, or even just anywhere for that matter, had maybe a little bit of a conflict or a disagreement or something, and how you handled that and how you responded to that.
Well, I had a very long and um, varied experience getting into entrepreneurship, including I was a teacher for a decade and I was in high ticket sales and even the corporate world until I found the right home, which was entrepreneurship. And when I was working with other coworkers and things, it was something I brought to my own business as well. And inevitably, all those conflicts were around the lack of having the fine lines of responsibilities and scope. And that's the big thing, is defining people's responsibilities and who is the stakeholder for a specific task or accountability. Because every time I had a conflict with somebody, it was, oh, I thought that was your job, that was my job, that's not my job. And if you have the scope of those things laid out from the very beginning, particularly when you step into the role of leadership, of the clearly defined roles and responsibilities and the chain of command, you can mitigate those right away.
Wow, that's an outstanding answer. I love that. And I use the phrase role clarity, but it's the same concept. Really
Mhm.
like that answer, Josh, because that is such a critical piece in an organization, especially as it gets larger, that everybody knows exactly what they're responsible for and they're
Oh,
accountable
yeah.
for. So that's
Yeah,
great.
you have to be.
Yeah.
It's literally the crown jewel of that. And if you get that piece dialed in, the amount of issues and things becomes, and then accountability of knowing if somebody is not fulfilling their role appropriately, just becomes much easier.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Great response. Very good.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Question number two, I'm sure you've heard the phrase that employees don't leave jobs, they leave managers. What's one tip that you would give to leaders to help them retain their talent longer?
Leaders lead from the front. You should never ask your employees to do something you're not. And the issue is, a lot of times management or leaders feel they have to know every job intricately, but they need to know enough about the jobs to provide the resources that that person can accomplish it, but also know if there's the tasks that are not particularly fun. The team has to come in on a weekend, somebody has to pull at late nights. Just because you've handed it off, you need to take one for the team too, and know that you're supporting them with the equal level of resolve that they're going about the job. Because ultimately, a job is still a job. Like, I personally really dislike the things of calling, family and things like that, because it's not. You're still employee, you're still supervisor. You can be a team and work in a supportive nature, but ultimately, you're still a leader, you're still coming from a place of leadership. And when you're leading from the front, you're not a boss just going, go over there. You're saying, follow me.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately one of the best things. And even in one of my early days, and I think we're going to cover this a little bit, one of my very first times was I actually ran a stage company of doing lights and sound. I'd be the same guy in there, even though I didn't have to, helping lift road cases and, slinging wires than as they were. And my team would do anything for me because I led from the front.
Oh, that's a great example. Thank you for sharing that, because that really demonstrates that spirit of leading from the front. I
Mhm.
like that a lot. Great response. Question number 3. What is one tip or idea that can help teams build resilience within themselves?
Well, resilience becomes from actually one of my earlier comments is having clearly defined roles and responsibilities. So everybody knows what everybody does and everybody's aware of their skills and their skill set. So they know, okay, this is, this person's responsibility. And everybody then is now accountable because they know what everybody's responsibility is. Also, when you set clear expectations of deadlines and what the indicators are for success, and not just have them in qualifiable things, have them in quantifiable. So you can have clearly defined metrics.
Mhm.
That's when there's resilience in that people actually have a number to strive for. They have an actual finish line for it, because it's, the old thing about who moved my cheese, of they
Yeah.
keep moving things. Have clearly defined things. That's what knows when the leaders and the team should celebrate those wins, celebrate the victories, because you know where a finish line is. You can now set another finish line, but not until everybody hits the first one, or so that first one's met, and that builds the resilience. But it also comes with the need to be able to know where those indicators are, of also having clearly defined ways to give feedback. And as a leader, actually listen to it and explain why or why not that feedback is important. Somebody can give feedback. You don't always have to take it, but you can always give basically rebuttal feedback of why that isn't appropriate now or doesn't fit the model. Because worse than not asking for feedback is asking for it and then doing nothing with it. Right? There's an old Far Side comic about that where it's a suggestion box, and inside the box is a shredder. And by having clearly defined roles, clearly defined goals, and clearly defined chain of feedback, then the team is resilient because they're being heard, but they also know what those goals are.
Oh, that's a great answer. I like that quick story about the far side. That's funny, but
Oh yeah, I need to find that as a poster.
well, yeah, and but the thing is, the reason why it's funny is because that's how some people feel. Oh my, I give my
Oh
suggestions, and symbolically speaking, it just goes right through the shredder, and the
yeah,
leaders aren't even paying attention. And so I,
yeah. It happens all the time.
yeah, it does. It does. Awesome. All right. Question number 4. Is there someone that you would like to recognize that has had a positive influence in your life?
Um, well, I mean, in particular, and it sounds cheesy, but it's correct, and it's been my family.
Mm.
My wife, my son, and my parents, when I was starting this crazy journey, were nothing but supportive. You hear in starting your own business or things like that of, the family going, oh, but what if it was just like, no, you're going to make it happen. And that makes all the difference in the world. And that was a big thing. And also in somebody who's been transformative and pushing us to the next level are actually two individuals that are connected. And One is Bart Miller. He's actually a coach, amazing experience that I had and helped me go into some of these amazing networks. And also the person who's wrote the book that that really realized online space, and that's Russell Brunson. .com secrets. I read it and I was just like, wait a second, like A, it can be fun, and B, it's not as complicated as people think it is. So really between family and then, my other coaching support, it's been next level.
Makes all the difference. I love that you recognized, I mean, certainly those professionals, but especially your family. I've been
Hmm.
pleasantly surprised. I've asked this question of many guests, and it's amazing to me how many of them have referenced and recognized family members, either spouses,
Hmm.
parents, even children, nieces, nephews, aunts, uncles. It's all across the board, but family is really critical. So I
Oh
love that
yeah, it
response.
is.
Thank you for recognizing them.
If
All right, our
yeah, if
last
you don't
question.
have family, find friends who are. By the
Yeah,
way, I'll just give that as a tip. If you family is not supportive, find a mastermind, find a group of other coaches, other entrepreneurs that are preferably a step ahead of you, but who can help support you,
help
because you
you.
got to have a support network, everybody. You got
Absolutely.
to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is such a great add-on to what you were saying, that we
Hmm.
have to have that support. And if you're not finding it, however, why ever, whatever it is,
Hmm.
find it, because it's out
Yep.
there. You'll find those people that will support you. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we need that support group, is to just have a cheerleader once in a while, if not several of them.
Yep.
Awesome.
100%.
All right, Josh. Last question. Tell us a little bit about your first job.
Um, well, it's my very, very first job was, that I worked for somebody else other than the kid, occasional mowing lawns and things like that. I was a cashier. I was the world's worst cashier, but that wasn't really the first transformative job for me. It was actually when I got into stage work, actually, and worked for my college, and that worked into the real first thing in the entrepreneur world for me. And that was all the way back in 2004. I had a small lighting and sound company that we did the stage work for local concerts when they came in, local concerts, things like that. And I sat on it for a long time, just doing kind of those things. But really, when I was reflecting on when I burned the boat on my teaching career back in 2019, it was that spark that pushed the idea of, yeah, this can work. And it was a whole lot of fun, doing those things behind stage, running lights for major artists like Charlie Daniels and the Marshall Tucker Band and all these big name acts. It was a fun way to straight out of college make some bucks, but also start building a business. So
Yeah.
that was my first foray into that. And we had the fastest crew in the entire area because of, like we said earlier, leading from the front. My guys would do anything because we had clear defined roles, and everybody led from the front.
Oh, that's great. I love that. This is
Yeah.
my favorite question. I've held on to this question the entire time since I started doing the podcast years ago, because I love hearing about people's first jobs and just kind of what got them started. And in some
Oh yeah.
cases, what they learned they didn't want to do. And so I kind of depends.
That as well. Yeah, I
Yeah.
found it one of my first ones. The whole corporate thing. That
Yeah.
this doesn't fit corporate. This whole thing.
I get it. I get it. Very good. Josh, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for
How can
having
people
me.
find you?
Well, you can actually go to epiccoachesandleaders.com. You can find me on there, and you can find me on all the social platforms at JK Brown Official. That's my handle on all the platforms. So JK Brown Official. I also have the website JK Brown Official. It'll take you over the other stuff, and or you can find us at epiccoachesandleaders.com.
Very good. Thank you. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. And we also invite you to subscribe or to follow the podcast, either the audio or the video version, whichever you prefer. We always appreciate your support. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great day.